Welcome to the 105th video in our series about Unix tools. Okay, we've had several videos in a row on Git, and the last one went pretty quickly and had a lot of commands I haven't explained. In video 104, I had to rescue myself from making a mistake in video 103 with Git rebase. We need to make sure not only did you get a good laugh watching me struggle, but that you learn from watching my error and recovery. So here are the vital commands that I used for fixing my mistake that I hadn't used before. First one up is git fisk. Once we got in there and realized there was a problem, I used git fisk to find out what's wrong with my repo, to check the health. Unix people know fisk as file system consistency check. Windows people call it scan disk, but git fisk is like a scan disk, but it's for the git repo. That gave us a list of dangling blobs and a dangling tree, I think. And we didn't really know what those hashes pointed to. So we had to use command number 2, which was git show. You can do a git show and then give the hash, and even if it's not part of the linear development, git show will tell you what the contents of that blob are. It wasn't very friendly. It didn't give us the full information that we get from a git log, but it was enough for us to determine which commit was the one that had the tag. Once we knew that, and I did some research, I learned that when you do a rebase, a git rebase, that has a tag in the range of commits that are reordered. This is only on a git rebase where you reorder. You know, if you do a reword, you won't have any trouble. But we reordered the commits, and those commits involved a tag, and what happened was the tag kept pointing to the same hash it always did, and that hash wasn't part of linear development, because what git rebase does is it makes new hashes with new commits to write the new history, and the old ones are still there, and you can see them with git fisk and git show. Okay, number 3, once we knew we had to move the tag, we had to learn how to do it. And we'd added a tag and we'd queried a tag, and we had to learn how to move a tag. And the way you do that is you do a git tag with the same existing name of a tag that's already in the system. And normally you can't do that, and Git will say, no, the tag already exists. And you have to use this -F option to force it. Obviously, you need to be very careful and very sure when you do that. But that's how we fixed it. And you need to think of this sort of like on the big bikes. A lot of the big bikes, you have to shift the gears yourself with a clutch and a manual transmission. That's also true from any high-performance car before the year 2000. The good high-performance cars all had a manual transmission and a clutch, and you had to do it yourself. And so, if you want to move a tag, you have to move it yourself. And we wanted to move the tag because we didn't want the tag to point outside our linear history. Okay. And then, number 4, as we move on down, after we verified everything was okay, and you know, you can pause the video and read this whole paragraph of all the things we checked. But after we knew the linear history was correct, the tag was correct, everything worked, we wanted to clean up that git fisk. and clean up our repo and remove all those dangling blobs so the next time we have a problem, we don't have to look at these old problems we already solved. If we've already solved them, we'd like to clean it up. The other thing that will result is your Git will run faster and you'll use less disk space. We use the Git GC, what GC stands for garbage collect. And basically, if you're a Windows person, with these options like that, it's sort of like doing a scan disk and then a defrag on some Windows drive, like drive C or drive D or drive E. So it's the scan disk finds problems and says, you want to fix it, yes or no, and you say yes. And then the defrag says, get rid of any fragmentation and any stuff we're not using, and get all the good stuff and move it to be contiguous. And with Git GC, what that does is, instead of having 10 or 15 small data files with all your commits, it creates one big file with everything. So we did that. Git GC aggressive prune now. The prune actually removes those dangling things we don't need, and the aggressive combined with the garbage collect takes all the small data files and makes one big data file with all the changes in it. And that's easier and faster to read from the disk. So when you do things like a git log, it'll run faster. Great. Those are the commands with the explanations. Now, let's talk about what did we really learn. And this whole video is not showing any new stuff. I'm reviewing what we learned. Number one, Git loves us. It's tough love. And you might have to look that up on the internet if you're not a native English speaker. But what it means is they love you, but they make you learn some things the hard way, making sure you don't get injured. But they make you learn things the hard way so you'll remember it. And you'll realize just how important it is to do things correctly. Okay, we did not lose any changes, and that's the critical thing. That's the job of version control, is to make sure you don't lose anything. Okay, number two, the Git rebase tool is great. And we saw that from several videos where we were able to clean up the history and make it look like we were geniuses. Even though it took me 3 commits to get a one-line comment correct, when I was all done, it was one commit and it looked beautiful. But the downside is, if we reorder commits that have a tag within them, and if they had 2 tags or 3 tags, it's the same, the tags won't move to the newly rewritten commits. Git rebase will rewrite the commits and they'll get new hash values, and it copies the data around to make that happen. And the old ones are still there, but those are those dangling things that Git Fisk shows. All those tags that were in the range that was rebased won't move. And you'll have to do a git tag -f for each tag in that range to move it to the new hash for the same change. Manually. Okay, manually. That was my manual transmission speech. 3, the Git Fisk and Git Show are great for diagnostics. When you're debugging and trying to fix something or understand what it is and then fix it. The output is weird, and sometimes it shows less than we would like. When we did the Git Show, it didn't show the committer or the time or any of those cool things the Git log does. But it showed us enough that we could get the job done. Number 4, The whole pain started when we tried to move the commit that had Git attributes in it, because we added those late in the project, but we wanted it to work for our old tag version 1.0. Put that stuff in the very first commit, and then you won't have trouble. And so, in summary, I've got the complete list of what you do for a new project that you're writing yourself. And, I hope you'll pause the video and take a good look at that. But briefly, make a new directory, go in that directory, do your git init. Then you need to do your git config locals. Git init may not work, and you may have to do the git config local first if you didn't do a git config global for your email address and your name. So these two might swap around. But after you've initialized, and before you put in anything else, put that git attributes and git ignore and get those set up. Then copy in or write the new code for the initial commit that you're going to put into the version control system. Then you need to git add all the files that you just wrote or you just copied, and don't forget you need to add those too. Do a git status. Make sure that all the changes are staged. Remember, that means for our git status short style, column 2 should be blank, and column 1 should say A for add. And then you can do a git diff staged and a git diff, and you can verify, that the changes that you saw in the status, which just gives you file names, do a git diff stage and make sure the changes are what you think they are, and you didn't forget something or you didn't add something you don't want. Finally, when it's all good, git commit, change to the parent directory, create a full backup, which was one of my problems. Was after I broke things, I didn't have a full backup. But I did show you how to do that in the previous video at the end of the video. Then copy that backup to some offline media. USB thumb drive, external disk, copy it to the cloud, but on some other hardware. Okay? Because if you just copy it someplace else on the same computer and the hard disk dies, you lose everything. Finally, after you copy that backup somewhere else, go to a third machine, not the backup, the place where the backup is, not the place where the project is. Go to another machine, borrow a friend's laptop or something, and then verify you can restore from that offline backup and everything works, to make sure you didn't leave some files out of the backup by accident, or that your thumb drive was too old and it lost some sectors or something. Once you've done all that, celebrate in whatever way you like. I'm a big old fat guy, so I like to eat, but maybe you want to dance, or maybe you want to do some sport or play a game. But after you've done all this, you need to reward yourself and celebrate a little bit, because you've earned it. And then when you come back to your project, you'll probably want to tag that as version 0 and keep on working. Thank you for having the patience to watch this video. I know it wasn't exciting because we didn't learn any new commands, but I want to reinforce and show everything in logical order and explain everything that happened in video 104, so you understand what I did to get in trouble, how I fixed it, and why we had all these problems. And we had all these problems because I didn't understand that reordering commits with a tag in them requires me to manually move the tag. Git didn't break. It just didn't do what I thought it would do. It doesn't do that automatically. If you reorder your commits, they're rewritten with new hash numbers, but the tags don't move. They stay with the old hash numbers. and you have to move them one by hand. Okay, that's it for this video. This one went on a little long. I'm sorry about that. I'll try to make the next video short. Until then, thank you for listening.